Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. I'm Louis Karpas. Nice to be with you this evening. And once again, as we quest to talk to all our Olympians, we have our silver medalist, whom I've already learned two things about before we even started the interview. One is it's not Joanne, it's Joanne. And it's no longer Van Dijk, it's Du Plessis. Joanne, welcome to our program for the very first time, and thank you so much for your time and for being with us tonight.
Hi, Louis. Thank you very much for having me.
It must be a name that's mispronounced so many times around the world.
Yes, extremely, especially in South Africa because we have the Joanne that's quite close to Joanna, so or spelled similarly. So I'm quite used to it. Usually I just leave it, but nowadays I'm like, okay, maybe I should just start from the beginning. It might be rude, but then otherwise I do it at the end, and then people are like, why didn't you just tell me? So yeah.
Okay, so let's just go back if we can before we talk about a wonderful 2024. I mean, Olympic silver medalist, you got married, all that happened last year. But let's start right at the beginning. Where did Joanne begin and realize that she could throw a javelin meters and meters and meters? What inspired you to start throwing javelin? And I guess it wasn't just that, it was athletics, wasn't it?
Yeah, no. So yes, it was athletics in whole. I did all the events. I come from a very small town, so I was in a very small school as well. We were only like I think 200 children from grade 1 to 12. So yeah, if you're in a small school and you're semi-athletic, you do all the events there is. And yeah, actually there was a girl that was 1 year older than me, and we can only start throwing in grade 6, and then she was 1 year older, so grade 6, she did javelin and she went all the way to the nationals. And of course, in like a small school, that is crazy. And she won the nationals. And then at the school, they had like a whole honoring ceremony with chariots of fire playing and everything. And I was still like a grade 5 girl, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I also want to have a soul bijeenkomst just for myself. And
Yeah.
then in the next year, we were allowed to do javelin. So I think maybe the reason why I started was wrong, but then when I threw the javelin, I wouldn't say, it sounds very cocky to just say from the start I was good in javelin, but I was like in grade 6 and I threw 17 meters just standing still. So for grade 6, that was like a lot. So then I think I didn't realize then, okay, I can actually throw javelin, but only later years I discovered that I can actually throw well. So, but I did it from grade 6 on how I
That little,
started, actually by seeing another girl do well.
I say that little town you're talking about was Worcester, wasn't it?
No, it's Heidelberg.
Ah, okay. In
Heidelberg,
Heidelberg, that's
it's
even
between,
smaller.
it's close to Stellenbosch, yes. So, Worcester, I was actually just born in Worcester. My mother is from Worcester. So, I was actually just born in Worcester. Born in
Towns in
Worcester in the hospital, but my parents lived in Heidelberg. Yes.
Yeah, these little towns in South Africa and athletics, they seem to bring up some unbelievably talented athletes. I mean, I think of the likes of Steyn, for example, also comes from a little klein dorpie. I guess, if I may, it's not like there's a hell of a lot of a social life in a little town like that. So school and extramural activities after school would be a very big part of your life in those days.
Yes, of course. Like, actually, maybe they were a little less than normal because, like, for instance, we didn't have swimming or, all the extras, but which I actually think was a good thing because it was the plain and simple athletics, netball, tennis, so there wasn't like a thousand other things after school. But, I mean, that's something that the small towns really focus on, and yeah.
And very strong communities, the little towns in South Africa. For those people that are not living in South Africa and are listening to us around the world, I mean, those little towns, the communities and the support that you get in those communities is something quite unreal.
Yeah, I think it's crazy because in a small town everybody knows everybody, and it feels like one big family, and especially for me as well. Like the community, I know we have Heidelberg Geselshookie, So every time if on Facebook, I don't know so every time on Facebook when I do well, they post something and say this is our goal, and
Yeah.
small town. So yeah, but I mean, I think it's so good for me. It was very good to grow up in a small town because I think my foundation and my morals and everything was like laid correctly. Not that I think that other people's that growing up in big cities,
Mm.
their as for this is not good, but it's just yeah, it's just a little bit better, I think, in a smaller town. There's not as many external factors. So, yeah, I
Mm.
think it was good. In grade 9, I moved to Iviniqua, that was in George. So, yeah, then my world broadened a little bit, but still I had the core foundation of the small town.
Yeah, it's not like George is this huge, massive city in South Africa. People need to understand it's a lovely little quaint little, well, I call it a quaint little town. I mean, compared to some of the other places in South Africa. So now you're in high school, and I guess you, as you say, you stood still and you could throw 70 meters. Did you ever at that stage think that throwing the javelin would get you around the world and get you to not one, but already 2 Olympic Games?
Yeah, so I think, well, I started throwing 17 meters standing still, and then in the same year I went to nationals. I won with the 34. Then in the second year, I got a coach, and then I started throwing a little bit further. Already in grade 10, I was selected for like the youth South African team. So already then I started traveling a little bit. So I always knew, like with the javelin, I already by the end of matric, I saw a lot of different countries because I traveled with the javelin. So I always knew, okay, it will definitely open a lot of doors for me and make me travel around the world. But yeah, I don't think I expected being or going to two Olympic Games already. So I think that was maybe not when I was in school already like I mean, it's always a dream, It's like it's any athlete's dream to go to the Olympic Games. But in school, I was also actually a little bit more focused on netball, playing netball and javelin. So javelin was almost like a side hustle, but I still did it and got like international exposure. But my main thing was actually netball. So at the end of matric, I decided, okay, I'm just focusing on javelin. But yeah, I never could have imagined that by the age of 27, I would be at the Olympic Games.
What was it like for you coming out of a klein dorpie and then a little bit of a bigger dorpie in George, and then all of a sudden, like at what must have been 17, 18 years old, all of a sudden you're now out in the big bad world. I mean, how was that transition? It must have baffled your brain a little bit.
I think it did baffle my brain a little bit. Going to university. I think when I was in school, I didn't even know like what actually happens at university. Like, do you have courses or, you just now you're going to university, but you don't even know how it's going to be. So yeah, so I think the fact that I was traveling a lot overseas during my school years or since from grade 10, like simultaneously broadened my outlook on the world and all the different situations. I think that also, that prepared me for when I'm, in the big bad world, especially if you
Yeah.
visit Africa a few times. Then, then you're kind of like sorted for the world because it's quite interesting the visits.
I know exactly what you mean. And I guess your big break really was the African Championships, which again, on a continent that is not, with respect, and I don't mean to take anything away from your ability, but it's not like Africa has had that many great javelin throwers. I mean, we in South Africa have had a couple, but it's not like the middle distance runners and the marathon runners that you would expect in Africa that somebody would throw the javelin, and you did exceptionally well.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it's not like you said, it's with all due respect, but it is in Africa, like you said, in South Africa, we have quite strong javelin throwers and actually a good history of great javelin throwers. But the rest of Africa, it's not like the middle distance and the long distance. So we always say it's like a soft medal when you medal at Africa because South African pushing you. It's probably a Nigerian, but otherwise there's no others, not on the
Yeah.
same level as, for example, European championships, where you get a lot more. It's like almost top 10 in the world is throwing at the European championships. So I think maybe that's also not a disadvantage for us, but a little disadvantage because, when we get to the big stage, we're like, okay, yes, all those other girls. So I think for me, it helped competing in Europe. So I know that my competitors, but, otherwise you don't really get exposure to that kind of competition in the rest of Africa.
I mean, it's amazing when I think that you go back to 2013, the World Youth Championships, when you went to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia for the first time. I mean, Ethiopia in 2013 was not anywhere what it's like now. And then obviously just across the road to Botswana, from South Africa across the road. And then all of a sudden, China for the Youth World Olympic Games. I mean, that must have been a mind-blowing experience.
Yeah, that was really like, I think when I got to the real Olympics the first time, I was like, okay, it's nothing like China. Because like when I got to China, it was this crazy, it's like something out of a different world. Like they had their own village. The village had, it was like, it's like all on its own, a real like dorpie almost,
Yeah.
with, everything you can have in a dorpie, a supermarket, a McDonald's, the gardens, the apartments. And the first time I actually experienced living with different countries from all over the world. And I mean, like in a village, you have a big apartment building, and it's South Africa, Kazakhstan, or South Africa, Austria, Japan, everybody living together in the same apartment building. So that was the first time I actually experienced that. And, like the whole thing about a dining hall has the capacity for like 3,000 people at once. Like it's, with all the different foods. And it was just that was a really crazy experience the first time I went to China. So I must say that was my first Youth Olympic experience. Was almost, for me, I think it was actually better than Tokyo. But of course, Tokyo had its COVID regulation.
Yeah. You arrive in a place like China, 2014, what were you, 16 years old, maybe going 17. How did you discipline yourself or control yourself? Because, yeah, it's like putting a 5-year-old in a candy store and saying, okay, well, look at all of this stuff around you. You must have thought, wow, where am I? What do I do next?
Yeah, I think it is quite crazy. Like, for me, I think I always say it's like the life gets too much. It's a lot of things. And also my parents were also in China with me. So I just want to do all the things I could do there. But no, I think with regards to like the discipline, and I think from a young age, I was very disciplined in my training and in eating correctly and all those things. I think it wasn't that difficult for me to remain focused and disciplined. I think it was just something born into me, at least. But of course, you fall off the wagon
Yeah.
sometimes, and then you just get back and stay in line. So.
And then your first big success, African Junior Championships in 2015 in Ethiopia. That must have been a wonderful experience as well.
Yeah, it was really eye-opening actually in Ethiopia because it was strange. It was like, the main city and there were still dirt roads, and I still remember going to like a shop asking, for like a energy bar or something, and they were like, okay, no, you just go to this shop. There's everything you need, and there's like in the shop a few packets of chips and some cool drinks, and that's like the shop, everything you need. So that was quite an experience. But for me to be on like, even it's continental level, but still to be there, it's everything. It's good experiences that helps build on your character and build on you as an athlete to be there and to compete there. And even if you think it's a soft medal in Africa, it's still experiences and just learning to compete on a higher level.
And then around that time, you were throwing around 48, 50 meters, give or take. And then all of a sudden, 2015, then you went into 2016 and it started getting good, serious 56, 57 meter distances. I know it sounds only 6 meters, but it's like trying to tell somebody to run the 100 meters from 11 seconds to 10 seconds. It sounds like 1 second, but increasing your distance by 5 or 6 meters takes an incredible amount of hard work. How did you get to break that 50-meter barrier and then into the higher 50s before you got to 60?
Yeah, so I think it's also a long road, but like I said, at the end of matric in school, I actually just focused on playing netball. I mean, I trained like 3 hours a day, but it was just netball, and getting fit. So it's of course like different type of training to javelin throw. I mean, javelin is more same type of energy systems you need to train to do, like sprinting, for example. So it's much more like explosiveness that I did not exactly train. But also, like I said, my focus wasn't really on javelin in school. I always like threw javelin, just the big competitions, and then sometimes like once a week or so I'll just throw the javelin, not really receive coaching. I think that end of 2015, 2016, I started throwing with Tertius Liebenberg, my coach now. He was also the coach of Sunette and Marius Corbett. And I went to Potchefstroom solemnly actually for the reason that he's there and he's the coach. Started working with him, and I would say definitely I mean, of course, I put in the hard work, but if it wasn't for him, I would probably still be throwing 50 meters because, yeah, he was really taking me from 48, 49 to 57 meters, just in his training and in his periodization of the events. And so I think it was definitely a shift in the type of training I was doing. Didn't do like endurance and, I hanged up my netball shoes. So, yeah, it's definitely a shift in the type of training I did that made me throw further. But yeah, it was still difficult in the beginning. I mean, to adapt from school to university is such a big transition that in the beginning I struggled to throw 44, 45, and I was kind of freaking out a little bit because, I mean, I came to Potch to throw javelin and I can't even throw 45 meters. So I said it was quite like stressful, but yeah, saying javelin is always like one day something just clicks and then you go from long story of how I got to 50, from 50 to 57.
Yeah.
But of course, that was the breakthrough, just going.
You're listening to the edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We'll have more for you after these. Join us tomorrow evening from the Boardroom to the Locker Room, where former national convener of selectors, World Cup debutant, as well as Protea cricketer Omar Henry joins us on the show when we will discuss South Africa's World Test Championship qualification for the final, as well as all things cricket. That's tomorrow evening from the Boardroom to the Locker Room with Omar Henry from 6 till 6:30 Central African Time.
Hey there, listeners. It's Kinga here, and I've got a question for you. Have you ever needed help but resisted the urge to ask for it?
That's a great question, King. I'm Nolita, and I've definitely felt the resistance before. It's like you don't want to feel like you owe anyone anything, right?
Exactly, Nolita. In this avoidance that comes from not wanting to get hurt. It manifests in avoiding connecting to other people. But what you are avoiding is reenacting the original pain.
That is so true, Kings. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in our upcoming episode 63. We are going to open up about why some people resist asking for help, even when they need it the most.
That's right. So, dear listeners, mark your calendars for the 19th of January 2025, when we are uploading the episode at 10 a.m. South African Standard Time.
Stay tuned, everyone, and remember, it's okay to ask for help. Connect with you on the 19th.
Join us on Thursday evening on From the Boardroom to the Locker Room when we chat to Malabongwe Maketa, former South African cricketer, interim coach of the Proteas and current coach of the South African under-19 team. We'll talk to him about his thoughts on South African cricket. We'll also talk to him about the South African under-19's test match against England and the one-day internationals coming up at the end of the month. That's Malabongwe Maketa on From the Boardroom to the Locker Room Thursday between 6 and 6:30 Central African Time. Join us then. What made you transition from netball to javelin? I mean, there's a very famous Van Dijk netballer in South African netball history. And as you say, you were training three hours a day. I guess you must have thought at that stage that you could play netball at a level for the Proteas, which obviously netball in this country has expanded and exploded tremendously over the last decade or so. What made you transition across?
Yeah, so for me, it was like that. Okay, netball or javelin, I need to pick one. I think at that stage, I thought that with javelin, I knew I had talent, but I still needed to work harder on it. But I knew that the harder I work, the results will come, and what I put in, I will probably get out later, or I will, get in return. But I knew with net, there's a lot of politics in netball, and I just thought that at that stage, it doesn't matter how hard you train and how hard you practice and how good you are actually. If you don't get selected, or the selectors don't want to pick you for the team, you don't get selected. So I think that was mostly the reason, was the politics in netball that made that I rather chose javelin, because I knew it would be on me and my efforts that I put in my training than on someone else. That was definitely the main reason.
So your career obviously has gone from strength to strength. I guess Port Louis, the African Championships in 2022, you threw over 60 meters. That really catapulted you into the big wide world, if you like, and then the African Games again through over 60 meters, and then in Douala again. It seems as though everywhere you go, Cameroon, Ghana, Mauritius, it's these hot, humid conditions, and then, of course, culminating in the silver medal in Paris. Did you feel through the late 22, 23 into 2024, you were getting better and better, and that Olympic goal already with 2 years to go in 2022 was right there as part of your focus, and that's what you were looking at?
Yeah, so I think in 2022, I think I completely overcompeted. So for me, it was just, I always knew, like you said, from 2022, I knew I'm in the mix. I knew I am capable of things, but I think didn't yet thought that, okay, silver medal. In 2022, I was just like focusing, okay, didn't get into the final at the World Championships. Like that was my main thing. Okay, next year I'm not sitting on the stands again. I'm getting into the final. So I think it's a lot of like just slow progression. I think 2022, like I said, I was a little bit burnt out from throwing all the time. And I knew, okay, things had to change. Next year, get into the final of the World Championships. That's the main goal. And yeah, I think from 2023 onwards, from there, I think 2023, definitely Paris was in sight, and I knew what I am capable of. Honestly, not in 2023. I already thought about a silver medal or a medal at the Olympic Games. I think at the end of 2023, our main goal was get into the Olympic final, get into top 8. And as the year progressed, beginning of 2024, I think something just shifted, and I just knew like I'm capable of being top 5 even. So I knew, I think our whole preparation in 2024 was so good that, I felt really confident in the fact that I knew I was prepared well. And I can, like, for myself, it doesn't matter if I'm medal or not. I knew that I could throw a good distance. So I think just going in with that mindset, not really, pressuring myself that I need to medal. I just knew that I'm in good shape to throw for, so I can just go and throw as far as I can and not, limit myself to a certain distance. And then it just happened. Everything just worked out on the day perfectly. So, well, not perfectly. I mean, there's a lot of things that were not maybe perfect, but I mean, on the day, it worked and we did it.
That day, of course, was the 10th of August last year. When you walked into that stadium and there was, 80,000 people there, for a girl from this town in a dorp that maybe had 5,000 people, you must have thought to yourself, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And the nerves, what were they like on that day?
Yeah, no, definitely. I was completely really chilled, or not chilled, like I don't know, it was just I had a calm feeling in my heart. I was just assured. I don't know if it's the fact that my coach was there or my family were in the crowd, or that I knew I was prepared well, or that I don't know. I was really, for me, I just knew I'm going to go out there and do my best, and I can throw for, I think, coming from the qualifying stage where I did the 64 in the first round, I knew I'm in a good shape. So, I was really relaxed. Of course, I mean, like my father-in-law said, like when he was walking to the stadium, his pants already were shaking. So, I mean, of course, it's something that I learned to, cope with, not in 1 year, 2 years, but like already started in 2012 or 2014 when I went to China for the first time and, had to compete international stage. So I think it's years and years of, walking into stadiums full of people and, the eyes are on you and you need to do what you can. But like I said, I think I was so calm in fact that I knew I was well prepared that, I think that was the thing that kept me, grounded, and just, I knew my competitors, I knew the track, I knew what I could do. So I think, for me, I was much more relaxed than I thought I would be. Of course, the day building up to it is stressful, but also, I had a lot of psychological help from people and from mentors that went with to, just keep me relaxed, I think.
Whenever we watch the javelin, it always appears as though when a javelin thrower or somebody puts the shot or even the discus or the hammer, you actually know when you let go that it's going to be a good throw. Did you actually feel that when you threw the 63.93?
Yes, I did feel it's a good one. And everything in my shoulder. And for us also, you feel when it's a good throw, well, sometimes you think it's a good throw and it's not, but most of the time you feel it's just a feeling you get in your shoulder. It's really just, like I said, like with training as well. Like at the moment I'm struggling to find the feeling, but I know like it's just like one day and it's there. So it's a certain feeling you get when you release the javelin. So for me, I knew it was a good throw. I didn't think I knew it was good enough to get me top 8, but I didn't expect that it's good enough to win silver. So it was a surprise.
So obviously it was a lot of hard work, a lot of years to get to the Olympics, and obviously finances are extremely important. And it's not like you're in a discipline where you earn $100,000 a month or even $100,000 in a lifetime. It must and still must be a huge struggle for you to get to all of these competitions.
Yeah, so for me, I think it was definitely a little easier than for most other athletes, due to the fact that I had like an IOC bursary when I was still studying. So it was like also from the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and they, selected me when I was at youth level. So all those funds I just, saved for the future, because I was at that stage, I was a varsity student, so I didn't need the money. Or not that I didn't need money. I mean, the students always need money, but I didn't have the expense, to pay my own rent and stuff like that. So at least like that's how I saved up, and the year after I finished my studies, I worked and also saved. So for me, the beginning was not that difficult. Of course, if you have savings, it's just like a certain amount. It's not like consistent. So for me, it's of course more it is difficult for any South African athlete, because our biggest competitions is in Europe. So you really need to do a lot of financial planning to be able to be like, okay, I am in the capacity to, go to Europe and participate, because it's a difficult system, because our competitions in South Africa ends at the end of April, and the biggest competitions in the year is in August and September. And to qualify for those, you need to go to Europe and compete in the bigger competitions, so you can get, firstly, more international exposure, and secondly, like the points, and also prize money. You get a lot of prize money to compete there.
So 2024, an absolutely fantastic year, Jana, and we move into 2025. It's the beginning of the year. I'm sure there's been a nice celebration and spend time with your family. But I guess the one medal that's missing, even though you have a World Junior medal in 2015, is the World Champs this year. I mean, that must be the goal, besides the Diamond League meetings and everything else that you have to perform and participate in. But the goal is the World Champs?
Yes. So the big one for this year is Tokyo 2025 World Championships. Definitely the biggest goal of the year is the gold. Of course, there's a lot more expectations now from externally, but also from internally, from myself, especially the fact that the girl that won the gold is also from Japan, so it would be nice to win in Japan. But she's very nice. I don't want to sound rude to say I want to win the gold medal on her home soil, but that would also be nice. But also, it's definitely it's a little personal, to be able to win the gold. But like I said, I think for me it's a focus on the throw and on the systems and on throwing far, not to focus on medals. But of course, it's definitely the biggest goal of the year.
And it'll be nice to go and perform in Japan with crowds. I mean, the last time you were there was in the Olympics and it was COVID.
Yes. So I think for me, it's also I think good. I spoke to someone else that was also with me in Tokyo, also one of the throwers, the girl, and she said she's missing out on the World Championships because she's pregnant now. But she said she's actually sad because she just wanted to go and redo it. And for me, it's also the same. I would like to go and redo it, strict and regulated, and because I think it's a beautiful country and a beautiful stadium and facilities that was just very difficult to compete in Tokyo in 2021. So I look forward to make a redo.
Well, we look forward to watching you. And obviously, you've been thrown into the limelight, silver medal at the Olympics. And let's be honest, it's not like the majority of South Africans and other people around the world pay attention too much to athletics events outside of maybe a Diamond League. And then the Olympics come along, everybody's watching the Olympics, and then they don't watch the less Cinderella versions of events at athletics events. How would you say your life has changed? How dramatically has your life changed in the last 6 months?
For me, it's just a lot more like interviews, a lot more engagements in different products and brands and everything. Of course, immediately after Olympic Games, I had competitions. I got into Diamond League the first time. So for me, on that level, it helps a lot with getting into, Diamond Leagues, and for my athletic career. And also for my professional career, I think it's very good to have that on my CV. But for me, it haven't changed like the person I am, or like how I am in my family. I mean, I'm still just you and I. It's not, for me. It's sometimes when people want me to do like a motivational speech or something like that, I'm always thinking like, why do they want me? Like, why do they want to have me at their school? And I think maybe my coach also says, I think you don't actually realize the capacity of this thing or this, I don't know, title. So I think for me, of course, a lot of things change in my career wise and in my sport wise. But for me as a person, I'm still the same person, but I just have a title now to go with. But for me, it, of course, changed a lot. Not who I am, but in all the activities and things that I do now, it definitely changed.
May you still throw the javelin for a long time, but tell us what life after throwing the javelin is going to be like for you. I mean, you say you studied at university. What do you see yourself doing when I suppose you don't hang up your javelin. I suppose you just put it back in its pouch.
Yes, yes. I guess I would probably hang up my javelins like on a wall or something. But for me, I studied dietetics, and I was at the NWU for quite a long time. So I did my business school, my business management, and a diploma in coaching science. But I would really like to do my postgraduate teaching diploma. So I would like to, after my career or my javelin career, I would like to get involved at a school, maybe as a teacher and /dietitian /coach. So for me, I would like to do that when I'm finished with javelin. I would even be a teacher and a dietitian and coach all on.
There's so many of us that are so jealous of a person like you. Not only are you talented, not only can you perform at school, but you're also academically inclined as well. There's so few of us that can actually do all three. I mean, that must be, the last thing I could think of when I was at school was to study. All I wanted to do was play sport. I mean, you are academically inclined as well. I mean, you're very gifted, you're very talented, and you've been an absolute pleasure to chat to on From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. All the best for 2025. Forward to watching you.
Thank you very much. Keep watching and keep supporting. That helps a lot.
We most certainly will. Thank you so much for your time. That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Hope you've enjoyed listening to it as much as I have chatting to Johan, our Olympic silver medalist and our hopefully World Championship medalist in 2025. That's tonight's edition. As always, be nice to each other. Until next time, bye for now.